Now we'll talk about multiplying and dividing fractions. Let's look at this example. 3/4 times 5/7. If I'm multiplying two fractions, I can simply multiply the two numerators and multiply the two denominators. So this is going to be the same as 3 times 5 over 4 times 7. And 3 times 5 is 15, and 4 times 7 is 28. And in practice, you can typically skip this step in the middle. You can just go straight from here and say 3 times 5 is 15, and 4 times 7 is 28. If I have something like this, 3/4 times 2/7, it's helpful to take note that some things can be reduced before we do the multiplication. I see this 4 and this 2, and I realize that both of those can be divided by 2. So I'll do that. I'll divide the 4 by 2, and it becomes a 2, and divide the 2 by 2, and it becomes a 1. And so now I have 3 times 1 over 2 times 7. So this gives me 3 over 14. If I didn't reduce it first, if I just did my 3 over 4 times 2 over 7 and multiplied those directly and got 3 times 2 is 6 over 7 times 4 is 28, this answer is equivalent to this answer. But this one is not in simplest form. I would then have to go and reduce this one, and I think, okay, let's see, both of these are even numbers, the 6 and the 28 can both be divided by 2. So when I do that, I end up with 3 over 14. And now it's in simplest form, and you see it's the same as that. In this case, it was about the same amount of work either way, but it's usually a good bit simpler to reduce the fractions first before you do the multiplication. And that's because it makes the multiplication easier. It gives you smaller numbers to work with, which are easier to multiply, and you're less likely to make mistakes, especially if you're doing the multiplication mentally in your head. And now let's talk about division. What if I had 3/4 divided by 2/7? The thing to remember is that if we are dividing by a fraction, that is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal of the fraction. So 3/4 divided by 2/7 is the same as 3/4 times 7 over 2. And notice instead of dividing by that, I have multiplied by the reciprocal of that. Instead of 2 over 7, I have 7 over 2. And notice I've only taken the reciprocal of this one, not both. Just think dividing by this is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. So I change my division problem into a multiplication problem. And now I can just multiply. The 3 times the 7 is 21, and the 4 times the 2 is 8. So I end up with 21 over 8. And that one simple rule is the key to doing division with fractions. Dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal of the fraction.